Mommispace, a place where you can remember who you are in the midst of it all. This podcast gives moms of all stages a voice to share their experiences and the truth that there is no right way to mom. Welcome back to Mommispace. This is Bree, and today I'm here with the lovely Kaylie Housewright. Welcome. Did I say your last name right? It's new, so.
It is new. You did say it right.
Yay!
Housewright. No, I'm very proud. It's always my first name. Like Starbucks, I just go with whatever sounds close, where I feel like it seems a lot easier.
Yeah, that's fair. Well, fun fact, Kaylie and I go way back to junior high. Woo whoop. Crossroads.
Way back.
And actually, you were my very first podcast interview ever when I was doing the Thread the Future podcast. So I just want to give a shout out to you. Thank you for sticking with me and letting me do experimental podcasting on you, essentially. Yeah, I'm super excited to have you.
Thank you for having me. I feel very honored. I mean, I felt honored already, but especially now knowing that.
Aww.
This is awesome.
Well, you recently became a new mama, and I just wanted to kind of talk to you about your journey and everything. Are you still in school right now, or have you finished?
I'm almost done, so I'm at the end of my master's.
Wow. Yeah, that's a big deal.
Yeah.
And also, doing some work stuff, I imagine, right?
Yeah, so I'm in clinicals and then the nonprofit and all the above.
Wow. Yeah. So I want to have you share a little bit about that stuff, but first, just give us a rundown. Where are you at in life? What's family life look like for you? And then we'll kind of dive in.
Perfect. So right now I'm in Northern California. When my husband and I found out that we were pregnant, because it was a big blessing, big surprise, we decided we wanted to be near family. And so my family is in Southern California, his family's in Northern. So we packed everything up with the puppy that we bought so we wouldn't have a baby yet and my pregnant belly, and we moved to Northern California. And so, goodness, everyday life is just homework, baby snuggles, clients, nonprofit, hubby time, family time. I just call it like beautiful chaos.
That's a good one. Wow. Yeah, okay, cool. So why don't you just dive in? What was your journey into motherhood like? Obviously, you had a little surprise, but kind of run us through your process and emotions. Yeah, go for it.
Girlfriend, got a story for you. Um, so it kind of goes back, and I'm going to try to make this a little short and sweet, but it goes back to in my very, very early 20s. I had ovarian surgery that they thought potentially could be ovarian cancer, and it was an emergency surgery because I had an ovarian cyst inside my right ovary. And I had obviously amazing people surrounding me, community praying for us during it, and it came back benign, thank the Lord. But during that time, there was a discussion of, this could go wrong and this is what could happen. And even afterwards, when the surgery was a success and they were able to save my ovaries, they had told me it could be really difficult for you to get pregnant, if at all. And so I kind of carried that in my mind of that was a potential. I always knew that regardless, I would be a mother. And that's part of the nonprofit work and what I love about, sharing that motherly love with all nations. But I just didn't expect to happen as quickly as possible. So my husband and I got married last May, and we had a 3-year plan, and that turned into a 3-month plan. So yeah, we had just a gold medal swimmer that broke through barriers and desperately wanted to be a part of the family. Thank the Lord. So we had actually flown out to Northern California because there was flooding in Nashville. And so my in-laws just wanted us to come out, make it a short vacation, but also be safe. And so we did. And I was feeling really sick. And I thought that it was just from traveling and stress with school. And my sister-in-law had told me I should take a test just to rule that out. And there was no part of me that thought it was even a possibility
Mm.
to get pregnant, because I thought it would even be hard when we, decided to try in 3 years. And for some reason, out of all the stuff that I left behind to potentially get flooded, I had brought a pack of pregnancy
No
tests with
way.
me. Yeah, just like out of all the things that I brought that I needed to
What?
save, I brought a pack of pregnancy tests. And so I went into the bathroom with nobody knowing, and I took a test, positive that it wasn't going to be positive. A few minutes later, just that a faint, faint blue second line
Oh
popped up, and my immediate reaction was I started silently screaming and like jumping up and down.
my God.
And then I sent pictures to my sister-in-law, who had told me to take it because I thought I was playing tricks on my eyes. So that's how I found out that I was pregnant, was in my in-laws' bathroom,
Oh my gosh, that's crazy.
saved from the flood.
Wow.
Yeah, and I still didn't believe it. Even after I told my husband, not in the way that I expected. I feel like sometimes we all have these ways we expect to share the news. And in my mind, I had this whole plan of how it would happen, but in that moment, like I just wanted him to know. And so I grabbed our puppy, brought him upstairs, and in my little puppy voice, just asked if our dog could have a little brother or sister. Luckily, he knew what I was talking about, because now looking back, it kind of seemed ridiculous. Um, yeah, and he was stoked. 20 pregnancy tests later, I made him pee on a stick to make sure mine weren't faulty. I
That's
got
so funny. I remember seeing you like post about that and I was like, that's brilliant actually. Just to make sure.
Yeah, everyone else believed it. It was just me. So I took
Okay.
a plethora of tests. I again made him pee in a cup so that I could test my tests.
Hmm.
And got like 3 things of blood work, and I don't think it was till until he was really here that I truly actually believed that this was my reality.
Wow. That's amazing.
Yeah.
Dang. Okay, so coming out of that crazy, like, finding out you're pregnant, and then going through the pregnancy, how was your pregnancy? Like, did you experience any complications there? Was it as easy as getting pregnant for you? Like, what did that look like?
My pregnancy was wonderful. I was high risk for a few different reasons. And to be honest, I feel like the difficult part of my pregnancy was my own mind.
Mm.
Looking back and being a part of it, I loved being pregnant. I had a great pregnancy, great support system, but I feel like a lot of people don't always talk about, one, postpartum anxiety
Hmm.
rather than postpartum depression, as well as, prenatal and pregnancy anxiety. And so I really struggled with that. I was terrified to lose my baby. And so I became my own worst enemy in times where I really, and it's easier said than done, but really wish that I would have just chosen joy
Mm.
more than I did, if
Wow.
that makes sense.
Yeah, totally, totally. I appreciate that. We haven't really talked much about that. Usually I'm talking to moms who have older kids, but I think it is important to touch on that, the prenatal and postpartum, all the anxiety that can come with that. So I appreciate your vulnerability there. That's huge.
No, thank you. I'm realizing just how important it is to talk about those stigmas. Because if you don't, then you're alone in it. And that perpetuates
Right.
the issue at hand.
So, what are some of the things like, did you recognize it while you were pregnant? Like, did you have awareness of it? And if so, like, how did you cope with it? Or was that something that you kind of had to like revisit once you had your little boy?
So both. I was aware of it because of my field of work, and especially
Hmm.
where I'm at, in my clinicals right now. I'm very aware and educated per se on, depression and anxiety and different mental health issues. But it's so different when you're going through it yourself and you realize just how powerful your mind and emotions are.
Hmm.
So in the beginning, when I had it, I justified it because of what I had experienced in the past with trauma and the surgery. Of, okay, well, this makes sense why I want to protect this baby, and I don't want to tell anyone yet. And I want to be in control of what is shown and what is shared.
Mm.
And then as the pregnancy went on, I started realizing that some of the thoughts were becoming irrational, because I would think about, okay, if, you know, God forbid, if something did happen, how would I handle it? Like, I was trying to prepare myself for something bad to happen.
Yeah.
So once I realized that I was doing that, I talked to my husband and I shared with him. And that right there alone made a world of a difference, having someone who was in on what was
Mm.
going on in my mind. And then I just started truly educating myself, not as, a therapist trainee, but educating myself as a mother and soon to be mother, what
Mm.
postpartum depression and anxiety looked like, and what can I do now to prepare for that. And I think that again really, really helped in my transition and comprehending what signs I needed to look for. And when I saw those signs, and I didn't have depression, but anxiety even afterwards, knowing, what's in my tool belt, what was I able to use to
Yeah.
be able to not per se overcome in the moment, but more so create an environment that was healthy for me to help either sit with me in that well or help get me out.
That's amazing. I love that. Yeah, and would you suggest, like, I'm just thinking about, like, if there are other mamas that are pregnant right now or have newborns, like, are there some things that you would suggest, like advice that you would give now, having gone through that and processing through it? Like, what are some things that you would suggest if they're in that place and they're like, dude, I'm feeling stuck? Like, obviously it's hard when you're in it to know, if you don't have those skills, kind of where to go. So what would you suggest?
Yeah. I would highly, highly encourage anyone who is working on becoming pregnant, who is pregnant, um, to create that support system for yourself. Know who is going to be your people that you go to when you're struggling, and furthermore, who can you confide in now
Mm.
to encourage them to reach out to you and ask you the hard
Mm.
questions. Because a lot of times, when you're in it, when you're in the midst of it, even if you planned ahead of time to reach out and, per se get help, you can't. It's stronger than, your will to ask. And
Mm.
it's a real thing. So that would be something I would encourage, as well as educate yourself. And not everyone is as big into this as I am, but start going to therapy.
Yes.
For
Yes.
many, I am pro therapy, whether you're in the best stage of your life or the
Mm.
worst stage of your life or every way in between. Um, I don't see a negative aspect of working alongside not only a professional, but someone who is for you
Mm.
and yearns to see you healthy and has the tools and techniques to help prepare you
Yeah.
to be the healthiest you as possible.
I love that. All about it. Good stuff. Awesome. Okay, so I'd love to kind of have you share a little bit about what brings you joy in life, and some of the things that fuel your passions. I know being a mom can definitely fuel those things, but kind of share what you were doing before, because I loved being able to talk to you about all of that when we first chatted over the podcast. But then kind of where you are now and what that process has looked like with becoming a mama.
Yeah, absolutely. So I know our last podcast that we did together, I'm still a part of that. So I
Mhm.
am the co-founder of a international nonprofit, and our memo is we educate survivors and we equip fighters. And we work on the front lines with human trafficking victims, as well as train those who want to be on the front lines to, utilize their skill sets and not deny these amazing, amazing survivors of our fullest potential. And so I'm still full time in that. It is my passion, not only for those who have been trafficked and sexually exploited, but especially speaking on, again,
Mm.
mental health for caregivers, compassion fatigue, and everything that comes with that. I just have a huge heart, not only for serving those within bondage, but serving those who are serving those within bondage.
Mm.
Um, Especially being a mom now, like really
Wow.
understanding, like if I don't have anything in my bucket, what am I pouring into others? Or if I'm, continuously
Yes.
pouring everything out,
Yes.
I'm not being rejuvenated. Am I really helping them to the fullest extent that I can? So that coincides with my other full time, which is being in my master's. So prayerfully, I will graduate very shortly, and I'll have my master's in clinical counseling. And I'm working towards licensure, so I'm working as a therapist trainee right now. And again, mental health and health in general of an individual, really, really important to me, and I'm extremely passionate about it. And then now my other passion, which is being a mommy
Yes.
and a wife. And it's, oh my gosh, it's amazing. I think people have this perception that I feel like it even starts with marriage, where there's this
Yeah.
unfortunate negative coinciding factor of, okay, when you get married, there's so many limitations. And then when you get pregnant and have a baby, there's so many limitations. And I mean, excuse my boldness, but like, screw that. Like that. So to me, it's so the opposite. And it makes me so sad that we don't see the other side of it as one, I thought I could only have one purpose in life. And then that lie was shattered because I have a calling in the field of work that I am educationally. And then I have a calling in what I do, vocationally with the nonprofit. And then I have a calling to be a mom and a calling to be like, we have multiple callings and you don't have to pick one. And I always thought you had to pick one. And so it's amazing that you don't only have to just pick one, you can pick multiple, but how they can bleed into each other. Totally. So I feel like my mama heart has made me a better counselor. My mama heart has made me a better co-founder for the nonprofit, in order to serve those. And even my mama heart has made me a better wife and truly comprehending what it means to be selfless, and knowing how selfish you can be, as well as how it's not selfish to care for yourself and to have self-care and learning what that difference is, in order to be the best you and be the best you for others.
Preach,
so
girl.
being a mom has just made everything even more important.
Yeah.
All that I do is more important because of this little boy.
That's right. That's so good. Thank you for going there too. Yeah. I'm so passionate about that. And I love what you said as far as I think especially within, and I may be wrong here, but within the Christian environment, sometimes we get so focused on, again, like you were saying, I have one purpose, one calling. And I think that's the limited mindset. Like there are so many things that God can use within your walk, whatever you choose. Like he's given us passions for a reason. And so I love that idea of there's more than one calling and they're going to bleed into each other. And I just think that's really beautiful. So love that. So what are some of the things that you do to stay inspired day to day as you manage your time? And then we can talk about what are some things you do to take care of your heart?
Yeah. So in regards to the inspiration, something that I learned a long time ago is that you have to remember your why, or you'll burn out.
Yeah.
And especially, the days in and days out of being a mom, there's so much goodness. There's so much struggle too. It's the best, messiest, hardest job in the world. Yep. And I would say most rewarding. Being a caregiver, in general. And so with that, with going to work and having to leave my child at home and dealing with mommy guilt and with the nonprofit, and, potential burnout and compassion fatigue with constantly being around trauma, I encourage others and myself to stay inspired is to always remember the why. What sparked that passion in the beginning? And why is it so important for me to, be a good mom and be a good caregiver and be a good therapist? And always going back to that why and having a community around me that reminds me of the why, for me, helps me stay inspired. And then, being a mom now, it's those little milestones. And, when I'm exhausted and then he smiles and it's like, oh, there's my why.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No really kidding.
But you know what I mean? Like I have somehow have pee in my hair and I don't know how. And then I've spit up on my shirt. And And especially when like I just walk into work and like didn't realize any of that. And then I'm leaking through my work shirt because I forgot my nursing pad.
Oh
So I
man.
put a diaper in there to try to make it work. And
Yes.
just sitting there and just being like, gosh, but how beautiful is this? Is like,
Mm.
there's so much goodness within the messiness. And
Mm.
I wouldn't want it any other way. I wouldn't want to not have,
Yeah.
diapers in my shirt and spit up in my hair because God chose me to help raise a human being.
Yeah. That's
It's
so
crazy.
good. That's so good. I love that. So, what are some ways then that you pursue self care in the midst of working and taking care of your little boy and your marriage? What are some of the things that
Yeah.
you do to tend to your heart?
I will say I was the worst at self-care. I was the best one to preach it, and I did not practice what I preached. And being a mom and being pregnant really put that in perspective to me and was kind of I like to call them spiritual slaps of reality.
Mm.
I have many of those.
Love it.
Um, because my self-care used to be watching SVU, Special Victims Unit,
What?
and working and finding fun
Wow.
things I like during work. That was my quote unquote self-care. That's not self-care. Um, a big thing for me is carving out time for my marriage. And if you're not married and you're a mom, is carving out time for yourself and carving out time for you with your support system, with your community. Um, because your community, it takes a village to raise a child, and if you're not making time for that village, it's going to bleed into that parenting and into what they perceive growing up. And so reminding myself that my child is happy with their grandparents. Like I'm the one that struggles.
Yeah.
He's fine.
Yeah.
He's fine if I go get ice cream with my husband and spend quality time and be present.
Yeah.
The only one I'm hurting if I'm not present is my marriage and is me, me being a mom. He's fine. He's being changed. He's burping. He's chubby and happy and loved on. Reminding myself that for me personally, I have to be, as a believer, I have to be in the Word every day. If I don't, especially with the chaos of life, if I don't pray in and pray out, for me personally, that allows the enemy to seep in my mind and live there rent free and start to diminish all the, self-esteem that I'm working on rebuilding as being a new mom. So it's a lot of that and a lot of self-talk. I encourage everyone to start I am statements.
Yes.
Look in the mirror, especially if, like, before you're going to take a shower, especially with, those who have just had kids and you feel like you're in a stranger's body, and just stand there and say 3 I am nots and 3 I ams, because what you believe and what is truth can be very different. And my goal for myself is to start to believe the truths and not stick to believing, the lies or the diminished self-esteem that I have at times.
Yes. Those are so good. And I totally agree. It's like so underrated to talk to yourself. I think it's so important. I didn't even realize that, but I think for some people, at least for my personality or for what I receive, definitely the self-talk is a huge one. So yeah. Good one there. Love that.
I just feel like our voices, or I have to remind myself, even if my husband tells me, something great about myself, which he does, he does often, and I appreciate it so much. I also have to realize that, like, my voice is the loudest one that my mind hears between my ears. And so other people can say stuff and it goes in and out, but if I'm not saying it to myself, and if I'm not doing self-care, that it's not going to stick if you're not doing it for you. And so it's a constant battle and a constant reminder, definitely. But it's necessary.
Yeah. That's so good. So you mentioned something earlier, mom guilt. I think you've kind of already touched on it, actually, with kind of what you've been sharing. But would you kind of share with us what that's looked like for you, feeling guilt within your mothering, and how you overcome it?
Yeah, absolutely. I've struggled with guilt in, like, every area of my life because I feel like if I'm not giving 120% to everything, then I'm failing. And that's a personal struggle that I deal with. on a daily basis. But I know for, for mommyhood, and I feel like there's this negative connotation with self-care. There's negative connotation um, with anything with mothering. It's like, if you're a stay-at-home mom, well,
Honestly.
why aren't you working? If you're a working mom, well, why are you working?
Yeah.
If you choose to, co-sleep or bed share or bottle, formula,
Yep.
nursing, it's like, it's so funny that, like, we're, as moms, like, we're our own worst enemies. Like,
Mm-hmm.
we are some of the most beautiful, most judgmental people, whether it's to ourselves or others.
That's so
And
true.
so it's a real thing that I feel like people don't talk about. Like, moms are mean to each other and to themselves
Yeah.
so many times. And so for me, it's kind of the same thing within marriage is, we have a really big thing of, like, we never talk negatively about each other,
Mm.
especially to other people.
Mm.
And so
Mm-hmm.
I try to carry that over in all relationships of, even if I don't agree with something another person is doing within their parenting, I should never ever talk poorly, because that's what
Yes.
works for. And if anything, especially if we, as moms, we know all moms have struggles. We don't. No one needs more issues. No one needs,
Yeah.
more
Yeah.
judgment. Is that to truly, truly try just to encourage and uplift one another. I try to encourage and uplift myself when I have
Yeah.
mom guilt. Going and seeing clients, it's such an honor, and I absolutely love that passion in my life and the job I'm going into. But, it's okay, but he's at home, and what
Mm-hmm.
if I miss a milestone? What if I miss his
Mm.
first steps? And, going through this, gosh, I'd be such a horrible mom. And so I have to remind myself again of the why. Well, I'm going because I'm trying to create an even better, more secure life for my
Mm-hmm.
family. Um,
Yeah.
and again, I would encourage that for any moms. If you're a stay-at-home mom and anyone comes out with, well, why aren't you working? Why aren't you pursuing this? Well, one, again, you can pursue multiple things as a mom, regardless if you're
Mm-hmm.
working or working, staying at home. Do people not realize that being a
Right.
stay-at-home mom is, you have, like, you never clock out. You
Nope.
never clock out of your job. And so you just have to, yeah, it's all, it's all difficult, and it's all beautiful.
Yeah.
And so
Yeah.
just encouraging one another and encouraging yourself. Like, that's the, I feel like
Yeah.
I'm starting to roll and get mom brain.
No, no, that's great.
But there's enough guilt in this world. There's enough really terrible things happening around the globe, that the last thing we need is within the community that should be uplifting and bonding and binding together to create the next generation who can actually make a change in a world full of nefarious crimes.
Yeah.
We need to be loving one another and ourselves.
Yes. Yes. That's so good. And I've found, like, for myself, if I, like, a red flag for me is if I'm in my mind starting to judge another person, whether it's a mom or not, typically that's a red flag that there's something going on inside of me that I'm being judgmental to myself, right? So just for those of you, if you're like, but how though, like practically, that might be a place to start. If you're feeling judgment, go, okay, heart, like where am I, feeling judgment towards you? Because it all starts inside. It's got to start somewhere. So,
It all
but
stems
yeah,
from yourself.
yeah, totally. That's good stuff, man. Okay, cool. And my next question, that kind of comes out into this question. I said that's so weird. What is the legacy that you want to leave for your children?
Oh, goodness. I heard something the other day that I thought was really beautiful, and it was talking about, you cry when you come in, like when you're first born, like your first moments is you cry coming into this world, and that when you leave, that you hope that others will cry, um,
Mm-hmm.
knowing the positive way that you have made them feel and have
Mm-hmm.
left them on earth. And so I think my prayer and the legacy that I want to leave for my son and children and is just to be someone who makes others feel good and feel important and valued and cherished, um, and wanted just to share a non-distorted version of love with the world. Um,
So good.
Because again, when when we're on our deathbed, I'm not going to be thinking about my master's degree or all the, mom guilt that I had. I'm gonna pray and hope that my children know how loved they are and how worthy they are to live a beautiful life.
Wow. That's so good. That again is like keeping like that's such a good perspective to have like in your daily life and being able to stay present. I love that. That is really beautiful. Oh, Kaylie, you're amazing. Thank you so much
Oh,
for taking the time out of your busy, busy schedule. And I know that it is full and amazing. Yeah, just to spend some time sharing your story.
thanks for.
I, oh yeah, I did have a couple like little fun questions if you're up for it.
Oh, let's do it.
All right. So the first one would be if there's a product or yeah, like a product for yourself or for your son that you have really appreciated in these, first motherhood stages that you would recommend to someone else.
Oh goodness. Uh, I personally love the Solly wrap
Ooh.
because, um, again, I'm a busy mom, and at the same time, I want to spend as much time with my child as possible. So it's a baby wear basically, and so it allows him to feel like I'm hugging him, and it allows me to feel close to him and physically be close to him while I'm getting work done. So
Nice.
that's something that for those who like baby wearing as well, I highly encourage. Especially because of the type of wrap that it is, it literally feels like a hug, and they're just a part of you. So definitely recommend that.
Awesome. Awesome. Cool. And then do you have a favorite family tradition that you want to pass on to your kiddos?
Oh, I have a few. I think for myself, one of them is pajamas on Christmas Eve.
Oh, yeah.
I
Good
we
one.
always yeah, we always did pajamas on Christmas Eve. When my husband and I were engaged, we started that tradition with each other and have carried it over.
Aw.
And so that's something I really, really want to do. As well as we do, our family's into camping. And so my grandfather,
Nice.
when he was little, started camping in the same place. And he like brought that into all of the generations
Wow.
growing up. So for decades, we've been going to
No
this
way.
camping place, and even after my papa passed, um, on the trees next to where we fish, it's in Mammoth. There's plaques on there that say like Papa's fishing place, and so
No
I know
way.
that I really want to continue is doing an annual camping trip and kind of showcasing the legacy that my parents and grandparents have
Yeah.
been yearning to leave behind as well, which is family time, which is family is important.
That is so amazing. And it's so I love I mean camping is just such a like it seems like such a lost art almost, especially
Right.
like if you're living in the city too, like I feel like that's such a beautiful thing to pursue. Just because I mean, air quality for one is just better for you
Especially
anyways.
right.
I know. To be fair, I'm like sitting I mean,
I
you're
was
up
gonna
in
say,
Northern California.
okay,
There's
are you
yeah,
safe?
yeah, we're okay down here. I know. There's like two that are close to us, so the air's bad, but we're okay. But yeah, I know you got a bunch up in Northern California because my brother and sister-in-law are down here.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
anyways, all right, cool. And then the last thing would be just a small piece of advice, which you've already given a ton, that you would give to a new mom.
The biggest thing I'm gonna say, because it's for myself, is build your community, and
Yes.
highly, highly encourage you. And it's again easier said than done. If you're struggling, and that doesn't mean it has to be with postpartum anxiety or depression, it's just the everyday struggles of life. Um, have a voice and reach out, and
Mm,
by doing so, you will be caring for your child even more than you already are. So I
mm,
highly want to encourage that. Reach out, get help. It takes a village. It's a really true statement, and let your village love you. You deserve it.
that's
And
so
and
good.
in turn, again, it bleeds into your parenting, and that love will pour onto your child as well. So if you have to see it that
Yes.
way, whatever will make that work for you.
Yes.
Um,
Oh,
let the love continue to fall down.
amen. That's so good. Well, thank you, Kaylie, again. This has been so fun.
Thank you.
Thank you so much for listening. I hope you enjoyed today's interview. Please share this with a friend if it impacted you in any way, and leave a review on iTunes so other mamas can hear the truth that they are enough and they are doing their very best. Be sure to catch up on what's happening in the Mommispace community every day on Instagram at Mommispace. And you can email me at mommispace@gmail.com for questions or interview recommendations. All my love to you, Mama. You're amazing. See you next week. Just to say that I'm the one you love. It's so like you to do the best for one, the best for love. It's so like you to do the best for